Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about some older radios that I use on the trail and on the hilltop. These radios are made back in the 80s and the 90s, and I've been collecting them recently from hamfests and whatnot. We'll start with my favorite 2-meter rig, which is the HTX 202. It's a monoband rig made back in 1989, I think, or 88. I think it's 1989. This is one of the newer models. The older models would say realistic on the top here. This radio gets me the best reports on air. People think I'm using a base station when I'm using this radio because the quality is just that much better than most of these other radios today. And it's very strong output. The stock antenna is decent. It gets out pretty well and receives very well. It's a 2-meter helical antenna. The battery pack is an aftermarket one. It's a 10 AA battery pack, which you can find on Amazon for $16. It has a tone board with a DTMF keypad, as you can see. It does have a backlight on it, and it does come with a belt clip, which is one of the best belt clips I've ever seen on a radio, which also doubles as the heatsink. Some common themes with these radios, all of these on the table here, is for the time period, they had limited amount of memory. The memory is also volatile memory, as opposed to non-volatile. For example, volatile memory, if you disconnect the power source from it, you'll lose the memory inside the radio. Unlike non-volatile memory, for example with the FT1XD here, if I disconnect this battery from here, it doesn't lose the memory. So that is volatile and non-volatile memory. These all have coin cell type batteries. Some of them you have to open them up and replace the coin cell battery in it. Some can be more challenging than others. The FT530, they put a battery tray in the front for easy access for their memory battery. So there's various degrees to replace the batteries in these radios. Typically you find them with dead batteries, so you'll have to replace them if you buy them at a flea market or on eBay or a hamfest. But going back to the HTX 202, this has great intermodd rejection. Combine that with my AEA 2-meter hot rod 5/8 wave telescopic antenna. This radio gets out very far and very effectively. This was also made back in the 80s, and it's kind of hard to find this 5/8 wave coil-loaded telescopic antenna. It's my favorite antenna to use when I'm up doing hilltopping or summits in the air or parks in the air. Going back to the HTX 202, it also has a bunch of knobs. I don't know if you can see that in the camera there, but we have a squelch knob, a volume knob, and a tune channel knob. We have the high power, low power switch, a DC input at the top, and a 2 input and output microphone port. So this radio is very versatile, great audio, one of the best speakers in a handheld that I've ever had. This speaker, I think, is about maybe 500 milliwatts or a watt. I don't remember the exact output of the speaker, but it's very clear, no distortion at higher ends, and it is very loud. So it's very good for outdoor use in noisy environments. Plus, it's a giant brick, so you could probably use this as a personal defense weapon. Moving over, we have the slightly smaller but equally squared brick, the Yaesu FT470. This radio was one of the first earliest versions of a full duplex radio for 2-meter and 70 centimeters. This is a monoband, and this one is a dual band. These others are also dual band as well, and they're full duplex as well too. What I like about this one is that I like the way it looks. The keypad lights up, and you have a small belt clip on this one, which is a little bit easier to carry for me sometimes. Plus, I've combined it with my external mic, so I don't have to hold the radio. What's nice about this is that I can turn this on, and I'll get my other FT470 here. I've been collecting these, and you'll notice that we have 2-meter, 146.520, and you can run the 446, the 70 centimeter portion of this radio. And let me turn down the volume here. And if I push the lamp button here, you can see it's got an incandescent light here in the LCD screen. I don't know if you can see that with the lights up, but the keypad lights up as well. So there's 4 green LEDs in there. I like that a lot. On the top here, we still have some knobs. We have a general volume knob, which controls the on and off as well. We have a secondary knob here, which controls the fading of the volume to either the UHF or the VHF side on here. And then we have a tuning knob, memory channel changing knob, and then we have the squelch here. And then on the side we have the temporary lamp the monitor button, and the PTT. And it also uses a B&C connector. All these use B&C connectors, which I also like with the older radios. And it also uses the heatsink clip here, or rather the belt clip as a heatsink clip. And then I have an aftermarket modern battery on here. This can do crossband repeating with certain modifications on it, which is also interesting. And it has a little bit expanded receive and transmit range by doing a software mod. So I can listen to weather. This HTX 202, you have to, I think, physically change it, but I prefer to keep this one only tuned for a 2-meter band, as it has very good intermod rejection. This one, unfortunately, is a older model of the FT470s. There was a issue with the older models that had intermod, and you could receive weather frequencies on the actual calling frequency of the 2-meter band. So people would send it into Yaesu to get it changed. The later models, the later serial numbers on the models had this done to it, so they did improvement overall. But I don't want to get too much into the radio itself, just going over some of the things I like about it. What's interesting about this one, it doesn't have a DC input. You had to buy a extra piece called the Pa6 Adapter. This takes a negative in the center and a positive on the outer. And I have a converter cable which changes the polarity. This would connect on the bottom of the radio, and then on the bottom of this you would connect the battery, so it would be able to charge a 7.2 volt lithium battery on it. I do have a 12 volt aftermarket battery too as well that fits on the FT470 for the full 5 watts output. On the 7.2 volt batteries for any of these, you only get 2.5 watts unless you push them up to about 12 volts or more. Then you'll get your 5 watts rather out from it. And then we have the Yaesu MH18A2B mini microphone here attached. I just have it on this one. So those are some of the accessories for the FT470. You can do satellite work with it. Works very well. It's one of my favorite looking radios with the kind of the squarish angular design. Moving over to its predecessor, which is the Yaesu FT530 here. This is also a full duplex radio on the 2-meter and 70 centimeter bands. What they did is they included a battery tray here, which you pull out and replace the lithium battery in, making it very easy and effective to maintain the memory in this radio. So it's obvious improvement over these other radios where you have to open them up and either temporarily spark weld it or solder it on into the board there. But again, we have the power button here, and it can do dual monitoring as it's full duplex. We have both of the VFO knobs here and the squelches, and a dual knob capacity as well, and a tuning knob. And then on the top part here we have the DC input, and again the microphone speaker jack here. And I have my own custom lanyard I made. This is using a 10AA battery case, and again you can buy these cases aftermarket. That's still available in this day and age. This is a 12 volt milliamp hour nickel metal hydride 12 volt battery, not a milliamp hour battery, but I don't know the actual milliamp hour specs on this, as I bought this from a Hamfest and it came with 2 of these batteries here. But I digress. This also has a light up keypad, a push function lamp, and this will actually stay on, unlike the FT470. You can see the fully backlit green LEDs in the display here, and the keypad lights up as well, and it stays lit up. So they improved that part from the FT470, and it has less intermod, wider reception, without having to do any sort of software mods on it. Again, a very good radio for satellite work as well. It has a not an aftermarket, but a Yaesu FT51R dual band radio on there, antenna rather. I'll turn this down here, and actually I'll turn it off. The speaker is a little bit smaller than these, so it's not the best speaker outdoors. It does work, but I generally find that the small speaker on the FT530 could use a little bit more work. It's very high. It's very good on the mids and the highs, but that's about it. I've gotten really good audio reports on this one and this one as well. The HTX 202 still has the best audio reports. Like I said earlier, people think I'm using a base station with this one. There's a bunch of other features with this, but I don't want to go over it into too much depth. I just really enjoy this radio, the aesthetics, ever since I've seen it on the Now You're Talking ham radio book. I've always wanted one as a kid, and now I have one, and I love it to death. I just use it for walking around the block as I'm exercising or maybe hiking on a trail. These aren't waterproof, but they're rugged, and they do have the BNC connector ports for the antennas, as you can see. Again, most of the newer radios use SMA connector types, and those aren't as rugged. Moving along to the Alinco DJ580. This was sort of bought on the spur at a ham fest. Actually bought from the same guy who sold me this. This cost me $40. This cost me $100 with all the accessories and the microphone. This radio I also bought at the same ham fest from another person. Just the radio itself with no antenna for about $25, and I checked it to make sure it was working. This one for $40 I think is a great buy. It comes with the AA battery case, the 6 AA battery case here, and it didn't come with a belt clip, but that's okay. It works fine, perfectly fine and normal. Again, at the top we have the VFO knobs and the squelch knobs together, so you have 1 and 2. We turn that on, and it also has a backlit keypad and a fully LED backlit screen, as you can kind of see there. It's a green color, and I kind of miss the green colors from the early 90s and late 80s radios, although I do really enjoy the incandescent light bulb in this one. It gives it a good good style point, I guess. And I just find it aesthetically pleasing. Again, this is also a full duplex radio. You can run this in crossband repeat mode as well, and it has a great sound to it on the air as well. The audio reports are very good for this one as well, and the speaker is pretty decent too compared to the FT530. I think it's on par with the FT470, but with a little bit more punch to it. Again, great radios. I enjoy using the older radios generally out when I'm hilltopping because I get out a little bit further in most cases than, say, using an FT1XD. I do get a full true 5 watts out with the 12 volt cases. They are a bit heavier. They do require a little bit more maintenance with the lithium coin cell batteries inside of them, but overall they're fun to use, and I just enjoy using the older technology because to me it just sounds better on the air, personally speaking. And a lot of people who I talk to happen to agree with that, especially with the HTX 202. This is my go-to radio for someone's on the air, parks in the air and whatnot, combined with the AEA 2-meter hot rod antenna. Now, some of you guys watching, you might be going down memory lane with some of these radios, and these aren't even that old compared to the really old stuff before they had LCD screens and whatnot. They had like dials and stuff on their radios. Those are the nice old vintage radios, and some of them even had crystal controls, so you only have like maybe 1 or 2 memory changes and that was it. But these are kind of the older, newer, modern radios, I guess we'll call it. And if you're looking to get into ham radio, I would recommend maybe buying something like one of these first, and then going to a ham fest to get a good backup or secondary radio. Maybe get an HTX 202 because these things are tanks and they got great audio, great sound. Or maybe get an FT530 if you can find one. These are pretty much, this is my all-time favorite one out of the bunch here. So that's pretty much all I have to say about these radios. I enjoy using them, and I hope you enjoyed looking at them. And if you have any, I guess, questions or comments and whatnot, let me know, and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching.